It looks like Trump's lawyers weren't able to get his case delayed. Looks like his first hearing for the Mar-a-Lago documents case is set for Tuesday.
This Tuesday, all eyes are back on twice impeached, twice indicted, one-term ex-president Donald Trump as his legal woes amplify. Federal Judge Aileen Cannon will preside over the first criminal hearing in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case involving Trump and his personal valet, Walt Nauta. This comes as Trump's legal team launches a federal Hail Mary to get his trial delayed indefinitely. And let's not forget about special counsel Jack Smith's other investigations. One into the January 6th insurrection, and the other Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. As reported by CNN, Smith's team has already spoken to all local and state officials, including secretaries of state in the 7 key states targeted by Trump and his allies, including Georgia, New Mexico, Nevada, Michigan, Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Joining me now, Charles Coleman Jr., MSNBC legal analyst, civil rights attorney, former Brooklyn prosecutor, host of the Charles Coleman podcast, and a darn good substitute anchor. Charles Coleman, thank you very much for coming back to the Sunday show. Judge Aileen Cannon is a Trump appointee, as you know. Should she even be handling the Trump team's request to indefinitely postpone the trial?
Well, Jonathan, all of the doubts that we've had about Aileen Cannon presiding over this matter will be sort of settled this week as she goes into some of the hearings and deals with some of the new motions in front of her. There is a question as to whether she can be impartial given her previous rulings about Donald Trump. But the truth is, the way she came about being involved in this case was basically by a process called the wheel. So it was random. And what I mean by that is ultimately there was always a possibility that Jack Smith and the DOJ were going to wind up with Aileen Cannon as the judge in this matter, and that's what happened. But going forward, her rulings on these motions and these pleadings in front of her are going to be critical in giving some insight to everyone as to how she's treating Donald Trump. Is she dealing with him as Donald Trump, the citizen, or Donald Trump, the former president, who deserves some sort of special consideration? So all of that remains to be seen, but it's going to come out very, very soon.
So then on Thursday,
Anyone who thinks somebody should get like special considerations just because they are a president or a former president shouldn't be a judge, or should be removed as a judge because that's somebody showing favoritism just because of a position or an position that somebody had.
the DOJ asked a Florida federal judge to disregard former President Trump's request for an indefinite delay. In his filing, Special Counsel Jack Smith said, quote, "There is no basis in law or fact for proceeding in such an indeterminate and open-ended fashion, and the defendants provide none." So what recourse does Special Counsel Jack Smith have if Judge Cannon grants the Trump request?
Well, there's always the possibility of an appeal, but I don't see the granting of that request, at least not the way it was made. Very likely, I think at a minimum, we will see a granting of it, perhaps in part, where maybe she goes beyond the December trial date that Jack Smith and the DOJ have requested. But the indefinite setting of a trial date simply is unconstitutional. And I know that she understands she will be reversed if she decides to do that. There's no precedent for it. And even in a case of first impression like we have here, it's extremely unlikely that Judge Cannon is going to move to have this trial delayed until after the 2024 election. I just don't see it happening. But in the event that somehow it does, Jack Smith does have the recourse of going forward and filing an appeal, because to do so would violate the Constitution and the speedy trial law that exists in that jurisdiction, allowing defendants an opportunity to have their day in court.
Now, meanwhile, Trump's legal team says the Classified Information Procedures Act could, in theory, delay Trump's trial until after the 2024 election. So how accurate is that? And if plausible, how could this affect Trump's case?
Not very likely, and ultimately, I don't necessarily think that that will be anything that affects Trump's case. I think on some level, any other federal indictments, a superseding indictment, those are the things that could potentially impact Donald Trump's case. He's under investigation, as you know, Jonathan, in a number of different jurisdictions for a number of different things. And so I think that if there are additional federal indictments that are looming, and those things turn forward into prosecutions that are going ahead, then Donald Trump has to have a different conversation with his attorneys about a legal strategy, and there may be some room there to try to push things down a little bit further. But ultimately, each one of those cases, if they come forward, is going to have this same goal, and that is speedy trial, speedy trial, speedy trial. So his typical tactics around delay, whether it's because of that or other pieces of legislation or policy that he's relying on to try to shield him, that's not going to work.